welcome those joining us in person and via online. We have a few things to get through first, but I'd like to introduce 3 of our new members, which have joined us in the nick of time, judging by those who weren't able to make it today or are running late. So I'd like to introduce Andrew Ferreira, Griffin Kupal, am I saying that right? Kopal, and John Reynolds, who will be joining us representing public interest and tenant interests. So we're very happy to have you here and excited to put you guys to work. So, I think all we need to do is we've got Kirit, we've got Emily, myself, John, Andrew, Griffin. So that's sufficient for quorum. I think there's a couple who are coming late, but we'll see. And so I think with that, we'll go to public comment. And I believe we have just one. Sharon?
Sharon, yes. Hi, everyone. I was here in October, so I know it's short and sweet. But since then, as I mentioned in October, just retaliatory behaviors from the landlord. This is, can I pass these around?
Yeah.
This is the initial letter. I sent out regarding some of the issues with my mom, and maybe you can educate me more. This is the latest. I'm barred and from trespassing. This is how they sent it on my mother's door, and these are some of the photos. I've chosen to because I cannot go there, send it via certified mail, so they have to sign that they've received the rent checks and so on. And this is the condition of the tenant and her trash. So you can take a look at that. But I guess I just need some education as to the bar letter. I am representing my mother. I'm not just, a person that comes to visit. I help her. So I'm a little confused by, they're quoting section 18.2 that I'm a person that visits and so on. So I am seeking legal help, and they're swamped, so I'm not sure how soon I'll get that resolved. But maybe you can educate me more as to how to handle such things. I spoke to Bogota regarding the ledger, and they were kind enough to go over and get something from them. The pages aren't concurrent. This is like 3 of 3 and 1 of 3 and 2 of 3 and 1 of 1. So I'm not understanding. They're saying that the housing department owes over $3,000 in my mom's rent. So that's kind of like because they sent me something saying that all the checks were sent, and now they're saying that there is money owed. And I still don't have a complete ledger of what is owed for my mom. So there's a lot of things happening, and I just want some feedback, Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. Just
Yeah.
Stay there.
Sure.
Okay, so, wow, I know this attorney personally. I'm on the opposite side of that. That's wild. All right. So the issues that you came in October for were the grab bar.
Yeah, that was that letter with all those things that I wanted
Right.
them to address.
And
Since then, it's been like, pulling teeth and retaliatory. Now I'm barred, and there is no give and take with them. It's just
they haven't addressed those items?
they have addressed the grab bars, sure.
Okay.
Yes, they did
And
that,
the
and I have
flooring
photos
issue?
of that. The floor, yes, they have addressed that. Again, the tenant they haven't addressed, and
The what they haven't addressed?
the tenant, that tenant number 7 that leaves her trash. And this is ongoing since we've moved in there.
What was the issue with the tenant with trash?
She does it in communal spaces.
Yes.
Because
Oh, you didn't see the photos yet?
I have not seen the photo.
No, they
but I
haven't-
don't
they
recall
haven't
there
come.
being an issue with a tenant with trash.
Yeah, I don't-
Yes.
Brown bag?
Yes. Yeah, that, I mentioned all of that.
So this is a tenant who lives on the same floor, or she's on another floor?
She's on, I think the top floor. I think that's the third, 1, 2, 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
and she comes down the stairs? with
Yes,
trash
you can
like
hear
this?
her. Yes.
I see.
Yeah, you can hear her clanking her trash and everything is left in the hall.
I know in October you mentioned you were seeking a court order. Was that granted?
No, I did the tenant assertion. The attorney that showed up that day pretty much said, I have no say because I am a power of attorney. I need legal representation, and they dismissed the case. And then, he said some kind words. And then after that, we did go into the office on the 17th to re-sign my mother's lease. There was no issue there. Everyone was very kind and cordial. And then once we got back to her apartment, that was stuck on the door, that letter of the being barred.
Okay, so let's just recap what the current issues are. You were barred from the rental office,
Right.
and
So I cannot conduct business there. I cannot go in and pay her rent and get a receipt.
so they require payment of rent in person
No, by mail.
by mail. So is there,
Well, I'm confused. Since it says mail, I must only correspond with them by mail. So, I'm just common sense is thinking, okay, since I can't go there, I'll certify whatever I'm giving them, which is a check. That's most important, that I'm paying her rent.
Sure.
And that way they can sign. I know they got it. I know they've cashed the check, but they won't send me a receipt. But that's neither here or there. I have, the canceled check in the bank,
Okay.
so that's fine.
so you're not barred from your mother's apartment?
I don't know. I really don't know. I am kind of.
This is pretty specific. It says it's barring you from the rental office. So
Right.
I would feel comfortable telling you that you are still permitted to go to your mother's apartment unless they say specifically that you're
Right,
not.
okay. All right, that's good to know. Because
So,
I'm a little bit, at a loss of what to do. I don't want to end up in jail because then there was nobody to take care of my mom or assist her.
yeah.
So I'm not doing anything that's going to step on anyone's toes at this point.
Yeah. I don't know this code section off the top of my head. We can certainly look into it and follow up with you about it. I don't know what, grounds they're citing for this disruptive behavior. Or
Right,
whatever.
exactly. It's kind of vague to me, but.
Okay, so besides being barred from the rental office, what are the remaining current issues?
That tenant.
The
Of
tenant,
course, yes, and the mice issue, there's a picture there of that. And I think that's pretty much what we're left with right now.
And they're still saying that you owe money?
Yes,
or-
my mom owes money and the county hasn't paid over $1,000 worth of rent, towards her rent.
Refresh my memory, she's getting assistance for
The
the
grant,
unit,
yes, the housing grant,
housing grants.
$695, yeah, and then she pays the added portion.
so with regard to the other tenant, it's difficult for property owners to, there's a limit on what they can say to other tenants, or in your case, power of attorney for another tenant. If this other tenant is, consistently doing things like you documented here, it's possible that they're already going through the process to evict that person or to address it in some other way, but they're not allowed to say
Right,
what
yeah.
they're doing there.
You
So,
mentioned that the last time, and I understand.
Yeah,
but
I understand it's frustrating.
Yeah, I
that
wanted
it's
just
so
to bring,
persistent.
yeah, I didn't have proof last time, so. I just
Yeah,
brought these.
so it's good that you're documenting this.
Yeah.
Are you providing those photos to the management office?
Well, I would like to, but,
Well, it seems like you can mail them.
okay, I'll try and mail them, but.
Yeah, and certainly you could email them. I think that would be fine too.
Okay, so email is good.
Yeah, I think the only thing that that I can see from that letter that they're saying you can't do is go to the rental office in person.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So as far as everything else, I would continue documenting and raising issues as they arise.
All right then, sure.
Anyone else?
Input?
Yeah.
Have you, for the rent stuff, have you been in touch with, I imagine that your mother has someone assigned her within DHS?
Yes,
And
yes.
has she been able, or they've been able to confirm where those checks are, if they have been paid?
Well,
or-
they did in October. And then when Bogota went and got that form, there's that discrepancy. So they did do their due diligence in giving me that. But I don't know for sure what the leasing office has, because now I'm seeing that they have that. So I don't know what is what at this point.
And is that, DHS would lead you directly to the property manager there? Like,
Yes.
it's not on
What I
her,
understand, there's a delay in some of that work. And actually, Cara is online. Cara, I don't know if you can explain to us what's going on with the ledgers and recertification. There's some kind of backlog.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, there's just, I guess with the change in management and how there's different managers that have been coming in, at this site, Whitefield Commons or Whitfield Commons, and also at another site, we've been noticing that there was a lag in processing housing grant payments. So this, I know the manager at Miss Hall's mother's particular property, she was working with accounting to be sure that they can get all of the payments sorted out and everything accounted for on the ledger. But yeah, I mean, I've seen at this property and two other properties, just because of the change in management and people lagging in the processing, there has been some discrepancies in ledgers and some work that they have to do to get everything reconciled.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Saul, was there anything to add since you had meeting with her?
So we went over to the management office to request the ledger. And they did say the exact same thing that Karen just mentioned, that they have to conduct an audit because it's, what you see there doesn't really reflect what's actually there. So they provided a balance that your mom would have to pay for, I guess, what's coming up the next payment. That's the only thing that they provided, but obviously they do say that they have to conduct a full audit on the account to reflect the right balance that's on there. Is there anything else? I think that's it.
And then
That's pretty much it.
sounds like this is not the only account that.
I wouldn't know, as this is the only person that's come to us for assistance, and so what we could offer was to, since she was barred or banned from going into the office, we offered, we could try to go, but at the same time, it's like, you really can't do much, unless they clean up the ledger.
Can you just, if you haven't already, send those documents to Rhoda, the letter especially of being barred, and then, oh, we have it already, okay.
Yes.
Good, great. Okay, so I don't think I've got anything else. It sounds like for the audit issue, it's just a wait and see.
Right.
Are they reaching out to you to
Oh, no, they
communicate?
stopped communication. That was one of the issues, that they weren't talking with me. So I have to go through third parties like Karen and everyone else in order to get anything done, which shouldn't be, but that's the way they choose to handle it.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, we'll do some coordination on our end and see what else we can do. But at least as far as the letter, you can feel confident still sending them correspondence and checks and things like that
Right then.
through mail and email. Anyone else have anything?
David, I think that if anything, management can sort out with the DHS on the county's payments, But what I would recommend is that you continue making your mom's payments for the amount that she has to be paying monthly.
Yeah, absolutely,
And, you know, DHS can tell you that amount,
absolutely.
exactly what it is, so that you don't fall behind with that.
Right, oh yeah, I've already calculated that, so yeah, I'm on top of all of that, so,
And
yeah,
then the remaining balance, whatever it is with the county, they can sort that out.
right.
Okay, yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Thank you for coming again, Sharon.
Thank you.
Sorry for the difficulty.
Hearing me out.
All right, we have meeting minutes approvals. How many are we trying to approve today?
Well, actually, I only have the one from last month.
All right, well, let's
You
just.
probably should have done September, October as well. But, so we just have November's. And there was one from October.
Okay. I don't know whether, new commissioners, have you received the
I've not
minutes?
seen minutes, but I plan to vote present since I'm not here for November.
All right,
November minutes was.
That's on November. Yeah.
okay. All right, so let's just approve November for now, and then let's get all the other minutes out so that we can approve the January. Any changes to the minutes, commissioners who were present? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve? Second?
Second.
All right, any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We are going to start with our first item, which is the Barcroft relocation plan. And who, on behalf of Jair Lynch, is presenting today?
Hi, David Hildy here with Jair Lynch. Good to see you all again.
Welcome back, David. Take it away.
Thank you. All right. So last month we were here to give you the overview of the tenant relocation plan for our first phase, and also a little more general information about the Barcroft project and the affordability plan. So tonight, coming back just specifically to review the relocation plan for this section, and I'll defer to Hector on the process, but I think this would be action on the plan, which we would go and begin giving notices for the first buildings in the first phase. So let's give you a brief overview, and then have you take questions. Again, this is, I know maybe there's some new commissioners too, I heard at the beginning. This is the first phase of Barcroft Apartments. So again, 2 years ago, Jair Lynch partnered with the county and Amazon to acquire this 1,335 unit apartment complex, and with the commitment of preserving all that number of units for 99 years at up to 60% AMI. And so this is the first of those phases to go. It's here in the maroon at the corner of 4 Mile Run and South Georgia Mason Drive. 5 buildings totaling 93 units. We are anticipated to start in Q2 2024. The renovation scope again is pretty significant. Electrical heavy up. We're adding new washers and dryers in units, new heating and cooling systems with individual controls for each unit, and then a full refresh of every unit. There will be some additions in this section. So that means we're converting 2-bedroom apartments to 3- and 4-bedroom units to provide some more family-sized units in the county, in the CAF program. And so that's 18 total. 14 will be 3 bedrooms, 4 will be 4 bedrooms. And then we also are doing just general landscaping, courtyard improvements in this phase, and adding some outdoor amenities. Again, here's a summary of the project. 93 units. Here's the unit mix. Again, the current and the future with the additions that we are doing. We went for a use permit in July. We submitted our Virginia housing application. This will be financed with tax-exempt bonds and tax credits. And we submitted that application in October, currently in that process, again, working towards a closing and construction start in Q2 of 2024. So currently, Barcroft Apartments, we have the covenant on the property, but before it was a naturally occurring affordable housing property. So we will be going through the required income verification process, because again, these will be tax credit projects. So all residents in this phase, we will income certify as verification of citizen status not required. Our property management company, Gates Hudson, was there to work with each household. And then also part of this income verification process, we have been and will continue to connect those who are eligible with county subsidies programs, especially if they have opportunities to do so. And then just jump to the relocation plan summary. That so we have hired a group, Housing to Home, who's a relocation specialist to assist with this process. They have already, we first met with the residents of this site back in April. We met with them again in October. Throughout the summer, Housing at Home completed some interviews and assessments with the residents there. But in our plan, minimum of 120 days notice. We've worked this with Hector as well. And we expect the renovations to take approximately 6 months. They will be phased. So again, like I mentioned, the start in Q2 2024 would be for 2 buildings, so 2 of the 5. So we would be sending out those notices upon pending approval of the relocation plan by the commission, and that would be for just the first 2 buildings. And then we expect this summer the other 3 buildings would get noticed. So this will be a phased approach, and we'll do this as in steps. All of the moving expenses will be paid for by the Gyre Lynch. So residents who earn under 80%, those are the residents that will qualify to move back into a LIHTC, the LIHTC project. They will be moved temporarily to a unit on site. We have maintained vacancy across the property to accommodate this. And then at the end of the 6 months or so, when their unit are complete, those who are able to move back will be able to move back into their unit, their exact unit. Those who live in the bump out units, we're adding the additions. Obviously, those are no longer 2 bedrooms, but we do again have the vacancy in that section to move them to another 2 bedroom in this section. And that's where they will return to. And then I think that's it. So just a quick overview, and obviously just want to give some time for questions you may have.
Okay, commissioners, any questions?
Yeah,
Andrew.
I have 5, but I don't want to maximize.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I know you don't have data for the 3 and the 4 bedroom apartments, but what is the delta of current square footage compared to the planned square footage of the 1 and the 2 bedroom apartments?
You said the square footage of the 3 and 4 bedroom units?
No, the 1 and 2 bedroom units. What is the delta between the current and the planned?
They're just renovated units. They'll be the same square footage.
Okay. And I also sat in on your presentation, I believe it was last week or 2 weeks ago. One question that was brought up was regarding energy efficiency. So are the buildings going to be LEED certified?
They will be certified through NGBS, which is another certification. Will achieve a silver level.
My third question is also, we do live in a more remote environment. So are the buildings going to be wired for 100 megabits per second?
The buildings are served by Verizon, Fios, and Comcast. So those are the providers. We don't provide that. That's what we provide through them.
I know, but usually in advance you negotiate with them regarding the wiring. So have you been in contact with your Verizon or Comcast partners?
Again, these are existing units, so they're already served by them. So the infrastructure is already in place for those, and we'll be, reconnected.
Okay. How many units will be ADA compliant? That was a question that kept coming up, but I know there was not really a direct answer 2 weeks ago.
There are no ADA units in this section. Okay. We're taking a site-wide approach. This section in particular is very a lot of topography, so there are not any opportunities for ADA units.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one is more about future presentations. If they could be more citizen friendly and use actual numbers rather than percentages. I know they fluctuate, but I know for some of the residents on the call, it seemed that they were confused of what was AMI and such. So just, if it's $30,000 or less, I would say just state it if possible for future presentations to the residents.
Thank
I
you.
know we live in DC, we use a lot of jargon and acronyms.
I know,
and
too
such.
many acronyms, I agree.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm speaking from a lobbyist perspective. I use acronyms on a daily basis, but I know when we're speaking to the general public, it's way over their head. That's all I have.
Other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I just had one question. There was a note that existing residents have their annual rent increases capped at 3%. Is there a time frame in which that cap remains in place, or is that for the duration of the time they live on the property?
That is for the duration of the time they live at the property.
Okay, thank you.
Has Jair Lynch received this?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, David, we received a list of comments from Mugata. Did you receive that as well?
I do not.
No, he haven't received them because I just got it at noon today, so I was going to forward them tomorrow.
Okay. I did want to give Saul at least some time to talk about some of the. Let's keep it limited, but you know, we can't get through everything in the meeting, but you can coordinate. We can coordinate more after this.
Yeah, well, so we reviewed the relocation plan presented, and we're working with the version that was presented on October 30th. So I don't know if there was any other update after you all submitted any questions or comments since the last meeting.
I don't
So
think.
basically, our comments are working. It's going by that version of October 30th. And so we can go through them, and I'm gonna try to go as fast as I can, but it's many comments and observations and things that need clarifications on the relocation plan.
Let's try and prioritize because there's 16 comments and.
Yeah, these are all relevant to our review of the relocation plan and things that are needed or need clarification. Importantly, so that residents, the tenants living there, understand what a relocation plan is, what the process is, and what to expect out of it, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things is that in the relocation plan, new heating and cooling systems is mentioned on page 5. States that each unit will receive a new HVAC system. And there's no other mention of this in the rest of the document. And at present, tenants do not pay for heating. And so after renovation, tenants will be responsible for their electric bill. You can find that on page 18, section 7B. But it will be good to know how much that will be, an estimate of roughly how much that cost would be for a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or a 3 or a 4 as proposed. So it needs to explain also that the system that will be installed after renovation, where there will be a heat pump with heat and AC, that will be the responsibility of the tenants. And so I think that needs clarification. As far as the rent increases.
Let's give David a chance to respond.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think that section needs to be updated. What we're committed to is that for those currently living at the property who are qualify for the rent stabilization, their utilities will continue to be included in the rent. We are not adding on additional rent for that.
Okay, great.
So if we move on to the second comment, rent increases after renovation, is the issue of rents and income status / the housing assistance of current tenants. The relocation plan states that the renovated units will be available sometime near the end of 2024, so next year or in 2025. And it's got the rent ranges here as found in the relocation plan. And so we did some numbers here, as you can see in the table. And the rent increases, you can see there in the far right column. And so our question is, how will tenants be able to afford the new rents? Because if you look at it, for example, the one bedroom ranges is $1,245 to $1,345, and then the proposed new rent is $1,645. And so the increase in rent would be from a 36% or a 26% rent increase after renovations. As for the two bedrooms, 1,400 to 1,500, to the new rent being 2,035, that's a 45 to 35% increase on the rent. So the question is how tenants will be able to afford that if what you have there in the profile is that only one tenant or household currently has rental assistance. You can find that on page 18. And the plan states clearly that there will be no tenant assistance plan after renovation. So no tenant assistance fund will be provided. And so the question comes is like, how would tenants afford the rent increase? Further, Jared Lynch keeps saying on page 5, for example.
Could I actually, so could I just address that?
Sure,
again,
go ahead.
That is a very clear, simple answer that we've been trying to make clear, and it does get, I guess maybe we need to figure out different ways to do it. But the rent the tenants are paying now, they will be paying that capped at 3%, even when they move back into the unit. The range you see is up to 60% AMI. So if there's a vacant unit, we will be able to charge the 60% AMI. But the existing residents, and again, appreciate everyone communicating this to them, is that their rent will stay as is, up to 3% increases each year. They will not see a jump in rent for anyone, not even just the income qualified, for anyone living at the property.
So even after they move to the new unit?
Correct.
Okay, because that's another point I had later on. And so I guess to that point of the 3% increase is to continue capping the rent increases for income qualified residents when they move into a renovated unit like that. So he answered that question right there. Next point is the washer and dryers in units. David, the representative for Jared Lynch, also mentioned at the last TLC meeting, and this was mentioned today as well, that there will be washer and dryers in the units. But we can't find that anywhere in the relocation plan. And so we'd like clarification on that, or that be added to it.
If it's not in there, then I'm looking back in here too, because I'm surprised.
Yeah, no, we couldn't find it anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it is, I mean, you can go look, our permit plans are in, you'll see them in there. So if we need to update that to make it clear, we can.
Next is on the priority system. So the relocation plan states that the tenants in phase 1 will be ranked on a priority system. You can find that on page 9. Once the profile information is complete, and that there will be a priority ranking system developed to provide current residents an opportunity to lease units at the property after the project is completed. So first, the plan should use the phrase legacy or vested, if that applies here, or explain that there's a difference between a current and a legacy or vested tenant, because the term current resident can lead to confusion. I don't know if that's clear.
What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, it could say current residents, but you may have residents that moved into the property after the acquisition, which then therefore do not qualify for some of the protections.
Well, they wouldn't be current residents then, right?
They're currently there. So of using the term current, so it's best to use legacy to refer to the residents that qualify for this. So refer to them either as vested or legacy tenants.
Yeah, so I can look into, we can look into what words are used, but I just want to clarify the commitment here. We initially used legacy tenants as those tenants who lived there at the time of acquisition had protection. We have extended that to current residents. So there's no distinction. If you're at the property now, these protections extend to you. So that we want to eliminate any confusion that it's everyone who's living at RA1 right now, they are eligible for the protections.
Okay, so that, including the relocation payments, will apply to anyone that has even moved into the property even as of this month?
Correct, yeah. They haven't, because we haven't, the units haven't been open. We've maintained the vacancy, but theoretically, yes.
Okay, I think that should be clear then on the relocation plan. That's,
I mean, if it's a distinction without a difference, it probably doesn't matter then.
Yeah. Now, we also, the second point is that there needs to be a priority system for the entire complex now. And this gets to the point of the vacant units. Why we say this? Because this is key, because your Lynch will never be able to fill all 93 units with only the current residents who now live in phase one. There's already 12 vacancies in this phase. And so, you know, the current tenants won't need or can't afford, for those current tenants that won't need or can't afford a 3 or a 4-bedroom unit. So then we ask is, what will the priority be? For example, you know, we have some examples like, would it be the length of tenancy of the complex, families with children, elderly, etc.? Who will qualify for these units from the rest of the complex? The rest of the park of tenants need to be party to this relocation plan. So we feel that everyone that's living there should take part in this. And with regard to the current tenants in phase one, the plan states that the ranking system will be done in accordance with Arlington County relocation guidelines and Virginia Code section 51.1.1410. And you know, our question is, what is this, and how is that relevant to the relocation plan? And tenants need to get a clear written explanation of what this means, what this code means. And so I guess I can move on to the next point.
Well, hold on, let's just pause for a second. David, do you have any, so honestly, I'm not completely tracking on this one. David, do you
If I
understand?
can,
Well, I was wondering if
if
Hector
I
could help
can,
us. Could Hector can you help us on this?
if I can speak on that, please.
Yeah, go ahead, Hector.
The relocation plan or relocation guidelines are only implemented for people that are being affected at the time of the plan. First, we recommended that there be one relocation plan for the whole complex. But since it's being determined that it's better to do it in small sections and staggered, they cannot make it for the other tenants that are in the place. So this only affects the tenants there. I understand that Saul may want other people to get the benefit of this, but once the tenants have come back to the units or have been finished with the relocation plan, the idea is that the vacant units that are remaining there will be used for the future plans, and people that are being relocated on other locations will be able to move into those and remain there. So the numbers or the priority they will put, they're using the guidelines that we have, that is based on the number of people, elderly, years that are there. So that creates a system that will allow them to put or give priorities to the people that is being moving to that. Of course, that will be on the next steps or on the other relocation plans that could be used to put that people there. But right now, I don't think that applying that to the whole complex, it's valid, because the relocation guidelines only require for the people that are affected.
Yeah,
That's my opinion. Thank you.
I hear what Hector's saying, but I'm not sure if I'm being clear here, but I'm saying is that before these apartments are marketed to the public outside of Barcroft, the current residents living in other sections have the opportunity to move into these units. That's what I'm saying. That they shouldn't be left out, that they should have the priority.
You're talking about residents that are in
Barcroft
that aren't in the phase one.
in this space, right? But they shouldn't be left out.
But
I think that David should probably address that, though. If you have 12 vacant units in that building, and he can probably speak to this, but like I would take the people that are in phase two and say if there are 12 residents that fit the need, then they get priority. Maybe David has another plan. I mean, I hear what you're saying.
That's what we're asking.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but maybe David has a plan in mind, because it makes sense. you're saying, so.
Yeah, I think I understand. So yeah, just to clarify, this gets into the financing plan a little bit, but as we underwrite each phase and go to Virginia Housing and raise our financing, we designate all the units a certain income level to project how much cash flow we get, how many bonds. So we are we're every existing resident we're assuming stays there with their current rent. That's what we're showing them. Any other units either get put at a different income level, whether it be in this case 60% AMI, or in future phases there'll be a mix of 30% AMI and others. So so I'm not explaining this well, but the short of it is that if we have units available that have been renovated and no relocated tenant, those are set aside at 60% AMI. So absolutely, a tenant could move into that if they wanted to at Barcroft, but then they would see that jump in rent because that has been set aside at that rent level. If they want to maintain their protections, they got to wait until their phase is developed, if that makes sense. So there is a financing nuance, as we learned, that it's not as simple as that of just moving someone into a vacant unit.
I think I've got the lay of the land here. It sounds like, Hector, you agree that they're in compliance with the relocation plan. To the extent they are, they want to go above and beyond that, they can. But, I think, Saul, what you're asking is above and beyond, right?
It's leaving all the other tenants that were there that are at the property. It's leaving them out.
It's not though, because once they are up for relocation,
Right, and then they go to 60% in my rents.
no, because he's made clear that anybody who's being relocated will stay paying the same rent, even if they're moved to a different, like, let's say there's a vacant in the first phase that's renovated, they'll move over there, assuming it's a 1-for-1, like a 1-bedroom to a 1-bedroom, and they'll stay at their same rent, and they'll be permanently relocated into the phase 1 area.
Okay, so that's what we were asking, that anyone in a different phase would have the opportunity. They're vacant units there.
Well,
they could move it.
They will once their building is being renovated in a different phase, but no one can just decide to go before their time is ready to one of the renovated buildings. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, but we were saying it's like, okay, so you have 12 vacant units right now. What if anyone else in the other sections was interested in moving in there?
They can't unless they're being actively relocated.
Or unless they want to pay.
Or if
they want to pay 60% AMI rent. Yeah.
So they have the option.
Right.
But they could also wait until their
Yeah.
building is being renovated and be kind of
They're not
protected by the.
They're not losing anything because they're still in the same place until they're relocated. And if they are relocated to one of the renovated units, they're at the same rent and they're getting the benefit of the new unit.
And I think that also addresses maybe the question you had for number 4, that if someone's in phase 2 or 3, by them not, I don't want to say moving ahead because there's a more availability, there is no priority of who's been there longer or different things like that. They're saying phase 1 people get the first straw on who wants to stay or go. Then the people in phase 2, when it's their turn to move, then they have that option to move and whatnot. So it kind of takes away that priority because they're saying instead of us trusting and trying to make that system, everybody just waits their own turn in like different groups. Okay. So it's a slower pace. I totally get what you're saying, because you're saying if there's 5 openings, you can have 5 people move in quicker than later. But they're avoiding the priority side because then you have conflicts and you'll have people saying it's biased. So they're getting rid of that. And just saying once it's your turn, then you can like. And still be protected.
And they're not required by Arlington County to do anything different than that. So I think that's the end of the inquiry for TLC's purposes, at least. I think this addresses 5, 6, and 7. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just checking with Hector.
Well, for number 6 is we still have the question about the relocation plan being available specifically in other languages as well. I think that gets to, was another point that mentioned that. The question is if the tenants have actually seen the actual relocation plan. And for those who speak other languages, particularly Spanish speakers, there's a huge population there. And we ask that whenever there is a prevailing language, that it's also provided. And it's in the relocation guidelines, they call for that. So
that's right.
We're wondering if that's available.
Yeah. Is that available, David?
I will check, and if it's not, we will make it available. We've been doing translation on all our, a lot of our documents. There are FAQs that kind of tried to make this tenant relocation plan more digestible that we put out that are translated into 5 different languages. So but the actual relocation plan, if we have not, we will.
Good. Okay. 8.
I should point out also, as we were glancing through the relocation plan, right now, it's not a point here, but I should mention that right now. On page 15, on the required notices, we'll include the general renovation notice in that paragraph. At the end, it says that copies of the relocation plan will be provided at the management office located at 1510 31st Street South, Arlington, Virginia 22206. That caught our eye because of the zip code is 22206. The property is in 22204. So we went and looked this up, and this corresponds to the leasing office at Park Shirlington.
Is that a typo?
Yeah, so that's an oversight. That's, I think, probably the last project Housing to Home did. So that's incorrect. And
so where will it be available then?
It'll be available at 1130 South George Mason Drive, the leasing office.
Okay. Then, yeah, we can jump to point number 8. The plan implies that every tenant or household at Parker has a current lease. Question is if this is the case, because at some point management stated that they found some people that still didn't have current leases. And so the plan on page 11 states that when residents move into a renovated unit, they will have a new lease agreement for that new address. And in addition to that, the plan states that when tenants move temporarily, they will sign a temporary transfer agreement. And I'm just saying that all this becomes very complicated for people who have to change addresses for cable, phone. We have residents there. A lot of them are immigrants, and so they're dealing with immigrations, USCIS, documentation that gets mailed to their mailboxes. And so we just pointed this out for further discussion.
What are you proposing that they do something differently than they're doing, or just?
Well, that will also get to another point later on in the comments we have, but.
If I could just address that, I could address that one. That's what
David first, Andrew next.
Okay. Housing to Home, that's the whole purpose of bringing them on. They handle all of that for the residents to make it easy and as smooth as possible. So we're paying this third-party group to smooth out everything you're talking about, because we understand that's a big concern. That would be a big headache. We're gonna make it as easy as possible.
Was that your comment?
Yeah, in all his presentations, he's mentioned that third-party vendor that will assist the clients. So I feel like that's
I agree. I agree. 9.
9, the next point expands on that. So tenants households who are over income. So the relocation plan states that we abbreviated the name to HTH, Housing to Home. Relocation team will begin verifying income to determine who will qualify for LIHTC units. First, this phase 1 tenants will be offered another unit apartment. So in page 12, we see that on the last phrase of paragraph that begins with during this renovation project, question is what happens when they move now and then they want to move out? So either because they want to move out on their own, or they can't qualify for a LIHTC unit, or they can't afford the new market rent unit when it's available. Will they be eligible for a relocation payment at this point? We feel that this is not clear.
Stop the question there and let David answer.
Yeah, so that situation doesn't happen. So again, our commitment is if you're over 80% AMI, we will move you into a non-renovated unit. Again, we have the vacancy we've maintained for this. You will continue paying your existing rent. If, again, this is a long-term project, so we'll probably have unrenovated units for a long time, but if we run out, we committed to move those residents into market rate with the rent protections. So they would eventually get a market rate unit with the rent protection. So those rent protections we are committed to, as the question was asked earlier, those stay with the tenant for as long as they want to be on the property.
Okay, I think that addresses that question. Reich, Saul.
Yeah, well, continuing with residents who choose to permanently relocate, it states that these tenants will be eligible for a relocation payment. Outlined on this relocation plan as $1,100 for a 1-bedroom and $1,300 for a 2-bedroom. On a side note, we compare that against the relocation guidelines, and the numbers do not match. The guidelines have a different table, different recommendation table with the relocation payments. So these are off. I don't have it here in front of me right now, but yeah, you gotta look at those numbers again. At the time of their unit's renovation or demolition, is when they're gonna receive this relocation payments, correct? And so what we understand is that only once could a current tenant get a relocation payment when the tenant household moves out. So this needs to be clear to all tenants, because surely some people will move once and then want to move out for whatever reason. And so remember that the new market rate units will not be built until much later, is what I understand, or we understand. And once again, there's no clear sense of the plant facing or how long it will take to finish all the renovations and new construction. And there will be many people who will want to move, and they need to be accommodated. Finally, the tenants who cannot qualify, for example, you can't get reliable information about their income for light-tick units, are going to be encouraged to move around inside Barcroft. And we don't think that that's a good idea, especially if Barcroft only gives one chance for tenant household to receive the full relocation payment. So they'll use it up then. Then we'll have the opportunity to use it at a different time. And so that's a tricky issue. But it could really penalize a tenant or a household that moves to another Barcroft unit, especially if management doesn't explain the issue that we're referring them as legacy or vested, but the current tenant, low-income tenant, who does not qualify for a renovated unit or cannot afford the increased rent, may eventually have to leave the complex.
On that regard, if I may intercede, what they indicated they're going to do, they're going to take care of all the moving expenses of the tenants. They're going to move them even internally in the complex. But if any one of the tenants decides to move outside of the complex and it becomes a permanent relocation for that tenant, the moving expenses will also be paid, unless the tenant asks to receive the relocation payment, in which case that's what the relocation payment is for. If the tenant does not ask for the relocation payment, all expenses, moving expenses, regardless of where they are, will be paid by the developer. And if a tenant is moved twice inside the complex or 3 times, the expenses will all be paid by the developer. There will be no expenses incurred by the tenant, regardless of income, if it's over income or low income.
Thank you, Hector. I think that's clear enough to me. All right.
If it could be, just clarify, So our next comment is regarding communication flexible schedules. A lot of that is said throughout the relocation plan, but we think that it needs to be really clear now what the schedule would be. For example, page 12 states that HTA's relocation team will work flexible schedules at the property and will be reachable by cell phone as well. So what needs to be known is what are the exact hours planned for staff to be on site at the relocation office. Would that include the weekends? What times would that be? At night? And further, in the relocation plan, you find there that the relocation consultant listed on page 6 has a Boston address. And so the relocation plan needs to state clearly the name of the person who is the relocation contact person at Barcroft, with a Barcroft address locally, and that person's telephone and other information that is relevant to the complex. So if you could have someone assigned locally that people can go to as opposed to someone in Boston, Massachusetts.
David, you have a response there?
Yeah. Someone is, and if it needs to be in here,
Yeah.
happy to. But yes, there is a local team here. They have a
That would be
presence
great,
area,
so that
yeah.
people know that they have someone locally here they can go to.
Yeah, and we'll obviously definitely do that as we notice people and work with them. So, if this needs to be updated in here, we can definitely do that.
We covered the next point about language interpretation and translations, about the relocation plan being available in Spanish. The pest control issue, it says on page 13 that 100% inspections for bed bugs will be conducted. But our question is also, what about rats and mice? How often would that be? Is it just once? It's just not enough. So what will the schedule be like for after renovations as well? What is the schedule now? It shouldn't be any different for renovated units versus the existing unrenovated units. This is a very important issue to current tenants and for anyone looking to continue living. And as you know, you've heard from other residents that that's a major concern. It's not just the bed bugs, but also other pests. So we need to know, a frequency of how often that will be happening.
David?
Yeah, I think the bed bugs is supposed to be specifically for a moving situation. We have the operations has regular pest control and maintenance. I think that was the
It's important that you do inspections as well as you're doing the renovations. And this is from experience working in other projects where they've gone through renovations. Oftentimes we run new conduit, electrical or plumbing or whatever, or existing that is there, that it just run through the bricks or through the walls, and there's a hole around it, and those need proper sealing to prevent rodents from coming in or other pests.
Okay, noted. Next.
The next comment is on out-of-pocket expenses. Page 13 addresses the issue. The question is what documentation will be required for this, and it gets really tricky with phone, cable, electrical bills, and sending bills. I also mentioned immigration, people dealing with immigration. If you could address or communicate what documents you will require from residents so that the team assisting with this will be able to assist them, and have a lot of back and forth.
David?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understood directly, but again, it's the housing to home team. Again, this is what they do. This is their business. So they are very attuned to the issues. A lot of experience in handling this. They're specialists in this.
Okay. Resident meetings.
The next comment is on resident meetings. So on page 16, the plan states that there will be an in-person resident meeting with a virtual Zoom in or call-in option at least 30 days before the renovations begin. Tenants should be participating at this moment, reviewing the details of this plan. Also, there should be a tenant meeting when the 120-day notices go out, not only at 30 days period just before the renovations begin. So if a tenant or a household receives the 120-day notice, there should definitely be a meeting at that point, not 90 days after the 120-day notices go out.
Is that a requirement in the relocation
There's
guidelines?
got to be a meeting where tenants are presented with a relocation plan.
And you're saying
The meeting for the relocation plan was already done with all the tenants. Besides, Barcroft has regular meetings with all their tenants where they are advised. The 120-day notices just lets them know when they're going to move. And they're in constant contact with the people that are doing the relocation for them. So doing a meeting specifically for every notice, I don't think it's necessary and it's not required.
Well, what we're saying here is that there should be a meeting to let people know at the point of the 120-day notice, not wait 90 days after the 120-day.
That's correct, but since there are monthly meetings in the project, that could be addressed that way.
Yeah, and I'll also say for we're not even waiting till the 120 notice. We try to like, for example, with our first phase, we actually met. We met in April last year, almost a year ahead of time. We met again in October with the same group. great turnout. And now, we're looking to give the 120 notice now.
Right.
So we don't want to wait until 120 days. We're going to do it 6 months ahead of time, or as much time as we can do.
Right, but what we're saying is here, it says on page 16 that the meeting will take place after the 120-day notice are issued, but 30 days before they actually have to move out. And what we're saying is that have the meeting at the 120-day notice point, so people know what's going on.
I'm satisfied that they're compliant.
It sounds like from what you said that can be clarified or doesn't need to be in there if you're having regular meetings anyway.
Yeah, I agree. 15?
I mean, if they're gonna have meetings anyways, right? So have it schedule a meeting 120 days before they have to move out, that's what we're saying. But
It sounds like they're getting notice above and beyond what's required in the relocation plan to me.
just looking out so people are well informed.
Listen, we're going through, an hour of this, so I'm happy that you're doing this, but I've got to run the meeting also. So, and we didn't get this, in advance, so I'm trying to keep the trains running.
This has got to be done even before the first meeting that Tenant Landlord falls on the relocation plan.
Okay, so
Yeah, but
I do have a question. Why didn't you provide these comments last month? At the very
I don't
first.
think anyone really got to it. I didn't hear comments from anyone.
I'm sorry.
I mean, there's no set time.
No, there is. We will give them a deadline of November 21st to provide you.
For the commissioners.
Uh,
For the commissioners.
Comments on the plan will to be provided November 21st.
My point is that it's difficult to have all of these, to get through all of these in the meeting that's supposed to be the vote formality, and wrap up, right? When
We're making sure that this is all informed so that we have a relocation plan that actually complies with all of this.
I'm on board. I'm just saying that, it's difficult.
We got 2 more points to get through.
I know, that's what I was pushing for, yeah.
All right. So point 15, for the undocumented tenants. At the Tenant Landlord Commission meeting, Geraldine staff said that documentation was not an issue, but this never is mentioned in the plan. And so we think that that's important, that people should know that. It should be pointed out clearly that legal status documentation is not a criteria for qualifying for the renovated LIHTC unit. Why we're saying this is because a lot of people are confused. When a property is converted to a LIHTC, they're like, okay, I need to have a social security. And so if I don't have it, then they're gonna self-evict. So a mention of that is important. And then the last point is who is the tenant household signed on the Barcroft lease? So the question is, what if the principal person, and this is one that not everybody had a lease up in acquisition. And so the question is that what if the principal person named on the lease is not around or can't be found? Who would get the relocation payment if that household moves out? And also, what if a unit has overcrowding? Will there be any help for individuals who have been living at Barcroft and not on the lease and will not be able to stay once the renovation is complete? Will those tenants be accommodated at Barcroft once their unit receives the 120-day notice? How is HDH planning to deal with the overcrowding? The question is because that is taking place. And so we need to know how they're gonna deal with that. And that concludes the comments.
David?
Yeah, I think what I can say on that is, again, we have a really great partnership with the county, with Amazon, with us. As we encounter issues, I think we've shown that we are willing to work with people. We will find ways. We will work with county resources. So I can't lay out every single scenario that could happen, but I just we want everyone to know we're committed. We're committed to our residents of Barcroft, and we're going to find ways to work with everyone there with the county's help.
Okay.
And well, thank you for allowing me the time. We submitted this in writing so that it goes from the housing staff that's assigned to this project, sends it over to ownership so they take these comments. And so,
yeah.
Well, thank you for allowing the time. I didn't need to go through every single one of them.
No, again, I want to be clear. I'm grateful for this feedback. It's made more difficult by the timing, right? Because no commissioner got to look at it before this. And then we had to go through it point by point when it could have been coordinated with David Hilda, for instance, beforehand, and we wouldn't have had to go through all this sitting
No,
here.
this is how we've had it, we've had discussions as a.
I've been the commissioner for a long time, and I've never gone through 16 points on the day of the vote.
Prior chairs is when we haven't had that many, but there's been issues with relocation plans in the past.
Yeah,
So
I'm committed to trying to get them right, and you're a valuable partner to TLC, one of our most valuable partners, and you do a great job in helping us get it right.
And so
only comment that I'm making is that it's difficult to do it on the day.
That's why we submitted it in writing, so because
I know,
I told
but-
you in the beginning, it'll take a lot of time because it was 16 points.
Right, but Hector said we got it today at like noon, right? So that's.
Saul, you asked for a copy of the relocation plan 2 days ago, and just send it to me today around noon, saying there's no deadline.
Let's
That
just,
was
let's
on
handle this
previous
after.
ones.
Hey,
That's
Hector,
not the case in this one.
Hector, I'll talk with you and so about this afterwards.
Okay, I requested the relocation plan because I didn't have it at.
It's fine. It's fine. You don't need to explain yourself.
I didn't know there was an updated one. Technically you have a session where you hear it, where you see it, and then you have a second session for a vote. But usually for the vote, you have the changes from the previous session. But anyways, let's not extend this any longer. I mean,
I understand.
in the best interest, looking out for the residents, we submitted this in writing. And
I appreciate it.
thanks for allowing
Glad
the
we were
time
able
to
to get
discuss it.
glad we were able to get through everything. So I want to bring it to a vote, and I've written down 4 contingencies of the vote that I think David has already agreed to, but I just want it to be memorialized in the meeting minutes. That if we vote yes, that these 4 things are included and updated in the plan. First thing is that it's specified that the current residents' utilities will be included in their rent going forward. The second is that the relocation plan will be available in Spanish. The third, related to that, is that the plan will be available at the leasing office that David Hildy specified today. And then finally, that the name of the local relocation expert will be put into the plan. David, do you have any issues with what I've summarized there?
No, do all that. Yeah.
Okay, great. Commissioners, any comments besides what I've raised?
The 2 others, I think, were if there needs to be a correction on the rate for the relocation payment. They said that there was a difference.
The rate?
The 110 and the 1100 and the 1300.
Right.
What page?
David, I don't think you.
I would defer to Hector on that. I don't know if we put any in because we're covering all those. I don't know, Hector, do you remember what we talked about that? I remember.
Yeah, I'll recheck the numbers and send it to you if they are different.
Okay. And then if the legal status documentation. It's
Right.
not
Right. Okay.
And I think he said they were going to add mention of the washers and dryers as well.
Yes, that's right, David.
Yep,
Correct?
I have. Yeah, sorry, I have that one too. Yep.
All right. Thank you. Anything else from commissioners?
The address correction of the leasing office.
So, yeah, I said that one.
Address, is that what we just said?
The South George leasing address?
Yes.
Can I make one comment?
Yeah.
Not to be added, but just general comment is all. One, I mean, your feedback is extremely valuable. I know it took a long time. But, I mean, hearing from David today, any company that's doing what they're doing, going through this process, it is extremely difficult to do this. But any company that hires a third party to help facilitate this with residents really does show good faith with them. And I would take advantage of that. If you're a resident or if you're talking to residents, tell them that. I mean, not all companies invest in a company to facilitate this with residents. That shows a ton of good faith on their behalf. I've been doing this for a really long time. I've never even heard of anyone doing that. So I would take advantage of it. Talk to the company that's doing it. I forget the name of it, Houses to Homes. I think was the name of the company, right? Like I would take advantage of that if I were you and engage with them directly, because that is a tool that is so valuable for you. So, yeah.
I don't want to extend the conversation. We do, I think we have a good relationship with Chair Lynch. We communicate with them as we find issues. Only thing this is submitted to the Tenant Land Commissions because you have to approve the relocation plan. So,
100%, yeah, just give my 2 cents.
thank you.
Just want to ask like an obvious question. Was a representative from the relocation company present at all these other meetings with the residents?
From the Houses Elms?
Yes.
I don't know, David?
Yes, they were. And Hannah Jacobson was on the info session. She wasn't able to join tonight, but yes, they've been
Oh,
involved.
that's right,
with me.
yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna ask for a vote, given those contingencies David's already agreed to. So can I get a motion?
I move to approve of the relocation plan with the 7 addendums
Yes.
identifier.
Can I get a second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Can you tell us?
Yeah, I think the onus is on the commissioners. We have a lot of movable parts. We have new commissioners who weren't attending. And it's our responsibility to go through this. And this process is just, I just am not comfortable that there are these clarifications when we're taking a decision. This is probably, probably we as commissioners, I don't know what feedback was communicated to Hector because I've been out of the loop on that. And I attended myself virtually at the last meeting. So part of the onus is on me, but I'm not comfortable voting yes, given not all, I don't agree with all of the points that were made, but just that there are these clarifications.
Yeah.
And that this commission has been discussing this project for 2 years as well.
Yes, although the relocation plan since October, but yes. I understand your concerns, certainly, Kira. All right, the motion passes, the relocation plan is approved. Thank you, David, and your team. Thank you, Hector, for your comments. Look forward to the next time you come before us, which I don't think, I don't know, when will that be? Do you know yet?
Yeah, the next, there are going to be 10 renovation phases and 3 new construction. So we'll become good friends, but the next one will be, I can follow up, but it'll probably be, it's in 2024, there'll be another one of these.
Yeah. Well, by the end of it, we'll all know each other really well.
Proofread the relocation plan before.
And no, and Solo works with us great, and we'll get so happy on the next one.
Of course, David, and save the comments so you don't have to come in with 16 points, 16 points next time. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, David. All right, we were going to have a discussion also involving Saul next on the agenda about the CAF resident survey report. For the new commissioners, we talked about this survey that they did at our last meeting, and it's my opinion that there's a lot of really good data in the survey. I've had a chance to look through it, although not in the depth that I think it deserves. My suggestion for us is to form a subcommittee, because I think whether it is, whether there's enough data in the survey itself that we already have, or whether there's, a way to leverage that data and get additional data, I think that a subcommittee would be the appropriate way to mine through it so that we can improve our public comment functions.
I think a recommendation of this be transposed into graphs and charts. Spreadsheets are nice, but they're not as easily readable on either screen or on paper.
Have you seen the PDF version?
I have not seen that. All I have was the spreadsheet.
It's in the link in the email.
Okay.
So I think you'll.
I thought it was the same thing.
Yeah, that was, that's the presentation that we got.
I think there's a lot more detail than the presentation.
This is a lot more detailed.
There's like
that was the link that was
at
provided for the
least
actual report.
10 pages.
Wasn't done with the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'll print that one out. I was like, oh no, spreadsheet.
So
because we asked for the raw data last time.
what I wanted to do today was just have a short discussion about whether there's a consensus about forming a subcommittee like this, who would be interested in joining it, and Hector, if you had any additional thoughts. I know I corrected myself.
I didn't thought you were speaking to Hector. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but I want to talk with the commissioners first about the.
I think some of this stuff will actually play really what the other subcommittee will talk about. So
Okay.
I wonder if it would make more sense to just talk about that briefly and then coming back, because a lot of it is
Yeah,
the
let's do that.
reporting that we should present to the commission, if that's okay. So.
One is out,
Was this?
copy of the ADR.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So for our new commissioners, one of the subcommittees that we had this year was to investigate alternate dispute resolutions and resolution subcommittee for it. This was in, like, similarly to this report that we were just talking about, came from the CAF strategies. So what our subcommittee did, we learned about the history of ADR in Arlington County. So Arlington County did have a mediation program from 2009 to 2011. When that person retired, they determined that it was a service that the county should not be providing due to conflict of interest. We met with UGATA, Constituent Services, Housing Division, discussed how they have their inquiry process, because there's a few different ways that both residents and landlords can get information. We reached out to Fairfax and learned about how they do it, which is not used. And the same with Alexandria. We had a talk with the Alexandria's equivalent, and they have they have investigators on staff that resolve 99% of tenant reported issues. So at this time, the subcommittee is not recommending that the county invest in a formal ADR option, and instead take the time and resources to strengthen the existing processes as well as the data associated with it, so that we can see where the actual gaps are, and really, we don't want to introduce another place for someone to call when we already have that in place. So I met with Rhoda and Hector and Jennifer on last week to go through what efforts are already happening and what the TLC can do, and that's why I think that subcommittee that this probably flows right into. So one, we recommend having a more robust public comment process. I have a draft of what that can look like at the end, and again, maybe that's something the next subcommittee looks like. Two, to explore reporting capabilities that again would consolidate all the different existing data sources, so from constituent services, from UGATA, from housing. It seems like there's a few different places within housing that they collect data from people, from tenants and landlords that are calling for issues. So both better reporting for us, for TLC and staff to be able to take proactive action, as well as identify the gaps where ADR could be filled. And then the need that we have identified that would kind of be ADR-ish is really to help people navigate resources. I think that's what we do with public comment. So strengthening, figuring out creative ways that the commission members can be a better resource navigator. And again, I think that too. So I usually talk a lot, I talk too fast, so I'm going to pause. If any questions on those before I continue on like other recommendations. So I think those three specifically would be great for in tandem with this end report for all on a subcommittee. The next is recommendations for housing staff specifically. Providing education to the commission, especially with new commission members, on the process that housing staff conducts when they do receive an inquiry, what resources they have to address the issue, and then how those resources differ from CAF versus non-CAF properties. So what really can housing staff do? A lot of that will go with the tenant rights association, assertions, and those things. Rolda sent out a report, but one of the that Hector provided in this meeting notice, but one of the things that we recommended is to start providing a summary of the calls handled at each TLC meeting, so that'll be a report ahead of time, so we can start seeing what issues are being called about, and the one that Hector provided was properties as well. And then Two, if we can start tracking the resolution of those phone inquiries that happened. So was housing staff able to provide the information that they needed or provide the reference that they needed? And then ideally, following up on things that where things are not resolved, following up later. So those are recommendations to housing staff. And the last part that I thought was a good thing for commissioners to know from our conversation last week with Roland and Hector is that there are initiatives happening for Arlington County, both for a new phone system. Do you think that's the right way to say that? Like an intake system?
Yeah, it's a much more coordinated system, not just with us, but with other sections of the county as well.
Exactly. So as that and other cross-division, I'll say, work initiatives with DHS to keep us informed on how that will pertain to other things that we're working on. Also, the example of flyers, meeting would be one of those things. So I think that is all of those recommendations. And I don't think any of them are too big. The idea here is just build the foundation that staff has set and how we can be more proactive as a commission.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, great work. One of the things that I've been hoping we could get towards is like standardizing a lot of these things that we deal with on a regular basis, and I think this is a great, groundwork for doing that. In your conversation with staff, and Roland, you can chime in as well, were there any suggestions or pushback, things that might be difficult to implement from your perspective that are here?
Nothing here. I do think that there may be implications for staffing time, staffing, staffing resources on the whole. There was nothing that was sort of currently doing, and we agreed that we would actually be a little more explicit in terms of what we're currently doing, how we're doing it. And so I think one of the next meetings will in fact have that kind of display, if you will, because we have revised our website and there's a tremendous amount of information on there. And so just being able to direct people to the specific areas or finding a way in which to make that information more readily accessible. But certainly changes have been made to the website and a lot of that information.
I think you sort of answered my question. I think it must be my is regarding the intake process. Is there an online submission form that requires fields? Because I feel like a phone call is harder to track than if someone were to submit an email to like a shared mailbox.
Well, there is that too. We actually get emails, and yes, it goes to housing division box that Hector checks on a regular basis. So there's that, and then we actually we get the phone calls. But there is a specific program that's used to log and to do like a summary of what it is about and the next step, how it was either referred to somewhere else and or what resolution or solution or suggestion is made for the person.
So it sounds like similar to like the New York City 311 system.
I don't think we're quite there, but
yeah.
I think that is the intention.
Or like a Domino's pizza tracker.
Of the constituents office. You have something of that involves all of them.
I think anywhere on here where you say call inquiries, that's my language.
Okay.
I just picture people calling in.
That's why you need like a switchboard for that.
To answer your question too, I think the one that we talked about probably with following up on unresolved issues, express you don't want to get into people's business too much. I think that probably makes more sense with an email to make sure that things are resolved. But calling something back is probably out of the scope of what they're trying to do. That was the
Yeah, makes sense. One of the things that stood out to me is the idea of having a TLC commissioner assigned to specific issues. I really love that idea because it sort of gives ownership, and then that person can like present, in concert with staff on what's been updated since the last meeting. So what are the next steps in your mind in terms of like implementing this?
One, I'm sad Sarah's not here. I know Sarah, as someone who was a constituent registered recently to have a public comment, had some feedback on what should be improved on the form. But going forward with where I thought next steps with the report too is what kind of data do we think should be good, and how do we get there? Was my next thought, and then we already, like Lola said, started planning next steps on how to the education recommendation.
Do we already have, Rhoda, an internal, like, even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet or Word document tracking like various stats on public commenters, like who they are, whether the issue is resolved, what property they're from, that sort of thing?
So what I do, at the end of the year, that's the year-end report. So I do have a chart in there that summarizes the complaint person, property, and nature of the complaint, and then what suggestions were made to follow up action.
So there's a running document somewhere, or you have to put it together at the end of the year?
Well, that's something that I try to keep track of as we get public comments. That is separate. Right? At the end of the year, it's
yeah, because I do think if we're encouraging more and getting more public comments, that could be more important going forward. I mean, one of the big takeaways with the Serrano, I think in particular, is that we had lots of warning signs about it, but we didn't necessarily take action as soon as we could have, or enough action or whatever. So tracking, I think, yeah.
On that note, is there a report of some kind that says that this property over the past 5 years has like 5 complaints consistently?
No, that's what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, and TLC is only a small slice, but one of the things we've talked about, and one of the things that's exciting to me about, the potential for this new subcommittee is taking some of the survey data, talking with and coordinating with code enforcement and TLC public comments. We can sort of string together things from multiple sources and have a better grasp about where things are going wrong and why they're going wrong, and be more proactive. Like I think we do a good job when we get public comment, but it's always very reactive, and people are always having to come to us. That's not the best. That's not optimal, I think.
So just for clarification, some of the data, don't you have the form, but you have the report at all, anywhere readily available. But I think Hector can look at that and actually have there's some properties identified in there if you got that version. Yeah, but there's a
tracking report.
Yes. So there's some of that already going on. But to the extent it is, sufficiently detailed enough, I don't know how much information you would get from that to ready. Maybe over time, you could probably see a trend.
Yeah,
but that's what we're looking for. So yes, that's probably already.
Yeah, I mean, we get a decent amount of public comments already yearly, but as long as I've been here, we've never really thought about it systematically, and that starts with tracking. So I think that's the first thing. I always say it's very difficult to have these sort of longer form discussions and actually think carefully about things in these, Yeah, yeah. So I think that, the reconstituting ADR subcommittee as, with this focus on tracking and public comment and coordinating resources that we already have access to, like the survey and code enforcement, I think that should be, one of the big things for 2024. And, I want to hear some commissioner thoughts on that. But I think that would probably be one of my biggest priorities over the next year as we end 2023 and move into a new year. Anybody have thoughts on that?
One thing I should say, one of the points on here, the recommendations on here about the coordination between housing and code enforcement, that is a bit of a sticky. So that is something that we still need to sort of go through in some way. So we don't have a plan for dealing with that.
Yeah.
That one was the one that it sounded like there were things that were happening, so the recommendation was more just to keep us up to date. But I think one of the things we also talked about, if there was ever a case where we should be sending a letter to county board or something to raise the issue, but it sounded like from our conversation, it's probably not what we want to do at this time.
Not at that one, and that's certainly not there. I mean, the way to do that, we think, is to be diplomatic with them as much as possible. But I think with the change in leadership at the code enforcement, I think we would develop a much better relationship with them, certainly. And just work with them on a case-by-case basis. It's also because residents are required to make their complaints or identify violations specifically with code enforcement. We cannot intervene on their behalf because they have to lodge that complaint. It becomes a court case. Mm-hmm. And so that connection, the actual reporting or the putting the complaint in has to be done by the resident.
Right.
Not being done by staff, intervening staff.
I mean, maybe a good next step is to have code enforcement come and to a TLC meeting so we can talk about this in more detail with them. But
we have to be on our best behavior to start a diplomatic relationship.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Never forget you guys come and drill them.
Does anything else come to mind in terms of next steps? I mean, what's your vision for this besides what we talked about here?
I think that's it. I think like having this continue with something else. Okay. With that focus, I think it's good. It's the lab, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we explored the ADR thing, and it seems like it's not going to be viable, but we can still do modified versions that are analogous to.
And I'll just like state for the record that I don't think that it's ADR like Arlington County should never look at it again. It's just like right now I don't think we have the date. Like it would be most successful if it was focused on something, and we don't really have an idea of what that focus should be, and so that's what the data should be.
Yeah. Okay.
If we implement this, we should have whoever the person is, the TLC member should be added to our agendas if they have something to say, because this happened in between meetings. They're updating the rest of the commission on what they found out in between meetings, so they should be like, we used to call member reports, but it would be the whatever they're called, the person.
We always have this item at the end, member and staff reports and announcements, and usually it's staff announcements from rolled up. But I think that's a good place, and we might even move it up earlier, to be honest, to be closer to public comment. Okay, but I do think, again, like I mentioned, I think a lot of thinking more deeply about this should be done in a smaller group setting where there's more time to think about it deeply. So I would propose that we reconstitute the ADR subcommittee and we discuss briefly who would like to be a member of that, to push that project forward. And this is the part where everyone raises their hand.
I'm already on.
You're already on it, so you want to stay, you'll stay on it. Yeah, I was assuming that the membership would be a blank slate, but if you want to stay on it, you're welcome. You get priority.
Oh, woohoo, thanks.
We're so excited to hear that.
You heard the woohoo?
Anybody else? New members, I know it's been overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff going on. We have, we had ADR and then we had outreach for our two subcommittees previously. Outreach is close to being finished as well, and ADR, I think this is their final report. So, this is going to be like the new opportunity for working outside of this just, 2 hours, right, once a month. And those sort of subcommittees, they meet usually once a month, depending on what's going on. They're also public meetings, typically we need, I think, at least 3 commissioners on one. It might be better to have more on this one just because it's, I think it can be pretty important.
How many people are on it right now? Just you and Kristen?
Yeah, Kristen's on it.
Right.
I'll be happy to continue. I think I would like to have my title somewhere else. Someone else will need it.
You want, yeah, okay.
The role that has limited that I'm not the other logistics person.
Okay,
I'm interested.
great. Okay.
Sorry, was there another person?
Andrew, Griffin, Kristen, Emily, at least for now.
Did you say yes? Yeah.
Great. So quiet.
Oh, yeah.
So eager.
Yeah, no, I was very eager. I just didn't want to steal the opportunity from anybody.
For now, unless somebody wants to step up right now, you guys can just have your first meeting and talk about who's going to chair it. I want you guys to have to raise your hand now.
I mean, I think that Kristen as the incumbent, maybe.
My bandwidth.
I trust you.
Right there.
No, the only thing I want is if we do have a bigger commission, we still have to meet for, or subcommittee, we still have to meet for.
Yes.
But we can have visiting guests
Mm-hmm.
that don't count towards quorum.
Yes, no.
Yes, that can be a visiting guest. Sometimes it's hard to get people to come. We can talk about it. That's fine.
Okay.
Are they also held in the evening or during the day?
It's up to,
Or
yeah, it's at the discretion of the members. So, usually.
We've had very few day meetings on that. I recall. I think when they're outreach, we used to meet over in that room, but not on a different night from the commission.
So is the outreach subcommittee also reconstituted?
I think it's still technically.
Ryan's not here, so I'm not.
Yeah,
gonna-
Ryan's been chairing it and he's been underwater. So I think that we'll talk more about outreach at the next meeting. So let's reach out to Ryan after this, because there's still some things we want to achieve with what they've done already this year.
Okay, and I have one more question. So where does that leave the CAF report?
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, we've already run out of time.
Can we
But
motion to table it?
yeah, I think that, figuring out exactly how the survey will be used and whether we want to ask, and I was talking with Saul before the meeting about whether they would even agree to do another survey, even if they have the funding, but.
Can I add something real quick there?
Yeah.
With the frequency that on an annual basis, actually we ran into an issue when we were doing the survey, and developers do their own surveys as well. So a lot of times we knocked on doors and people are like, I already took that survey, or I already participated in the survey. So if you increase that frequency, we feel that you're gonna run into that as well.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I'm just thinking out loud about, collecting good data. And so in terms of, I think it would be it would be great if you were able to come to, you know, one or two of the subcommittee meetings to talk about the data, since you're, you know, the expert on it, or Ugata is the expert on it. But I think that there's going to be there's going to be a way for these things to be connected that is going to be better than the sum of, you know, each individual piece.
Yeah. And I'm happy to attend, I guess, one of the first meetings, because one of the things we were interested was in the individual properties. But as we were discussing earlier, there were several properties where we identified serious issues. We communicated with the owners immediately so that they could step in and resolve, and they did. So we saw those results. So there are certain properties that the issues have been addressed, or there's been turnover. So whoever was a problem staff with the property, like the manager, has already either been replaced or naturally there was turnover. So.
Yeah, and I'd like for the TLC to be doing some of that. I think that would be good. Okay. Is there anybody else have thoughts on this discussion here? I think
The cap or?
it's all wound up together. There are thoughts about either.
I think it would make sense to have the subcommittee do it.
I agree.
So, yeah, so I motion to move item number 4 on the agenda to refer to the ADR subcommittee.
Item number 2.
Item number 2 is to be referred to as.
Oh, he's got a different agenda.
Oh, I see.
Here, that's fine.
So item number 2, refer to the ADR subcommittee.
So topics are the same.
Yes, it's the same, the CAF survey.
I'd also like to vote to have the subcommittee reconstituted as we discussed. Can I get a motion for that? You're not understanding.
Subcommittee.
The ADR subcommittee is basically going to be rebranded as, what should we call
I
it?
think we can do it, yeah.
Public comments tracking. I don't know.
Data collectors.
We can call it whatever we want.
The resolution assessment subcommittee. RS.
Yeah. Yeah. Resolution assessment committee. I like that.
Yeah.
There we go. So that's what we'll be reconstituting it as, assuming we have enough votes for that. So can I get a motion to reconstitute the subcommittee? All right, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. And I think we'll move to member and staff reports, if there are any.
No staff report.
Okay, any final thoughts from commissioners before we conclude the meeting? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second? Second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah.